On April 17, 1955, Albert Einstein was rushed to the hospital due to severe chest pain. He didn't know it at the time, but the largest artery in his body, his aorta, had ruptured due to an abdominal aneurysm, causing internal bleeding. Despite the urgency, Einstein wasn't interested in surgery. He had faced the same issue 8 years earlier. Perhaps sensing that his time had come, he refused treatment with these unforgettable words: "I want to go when I want. It's tasteless to prolong life artificially. I have done my share. It is time to go. I will do it elegantly." Just hours later, in the early morning at Princeton's Plainsboro Hospital, Einstein passed away. House MD fans might recognize the name, though the show's hospital is purely fictional. But the real mystery began after his death. Just 7 hours later, the pathologist performing the autopsy, Dr. Thomas Harvey, made a shocking decision. He removed Einstein's brain without his family's permission. He injected it with 10% formalin and preserved it, believing that studying the brain of such a genius might reveal the biological source of intelligence. But Einstein had made his wishes clear. He despised idolization and had requested for his body to be cremated and the ashes scattered in secret. So, in doing what he did, Harvey violated Einstein's will. And it didn't stop there. He also removed Einstein's eyes and gave them as a gift to the late physicist's eye doctor, Henry Abrams. Realizing the legal and ethical risk, Harvey quickly contacted Einstein's son, Hans. He somehow convinced him that the brain could contribute to science, and Hans gave him retroactive permission on one condition. The brain was to be used only for scientific research, and findings would be published in respected academic journals. Harvey agreed and promised to publish within a year. Decades later, Einstein's brain has been analyzed in multiple studies. But what did researchers actually discover? Were there visible signs in his brain that explained his unmatched intellect? Let's take a closer look. Despite being one of the greatest minds in history, there's a long-standing myth that Einstein was a terrible student. And honestly, it's not hard to see why people like believing this. If even Einstein struggled in school, then maybe there's hope for all of us, right? Well, part of the reason I'm making this video is exactly that. If we can understand what really made Einstein who he was, then maybe you can be like him. Or even better. But first, we need to stop lying to ourselves. Yes, school grades aren't everything. They don't determine your future all by themselves, but that doesn't change the fact that Einstein actually did have good grades. So, where does this idea even come from? Take a look at his report card from September 30th, 1896, the final year of high school. Back then, just like today, Switzerland used a grading scale where 6 was the highest and 1 was the lowest. Now look closely. He scored 6s in algebra, geometry, physics, and history. He got 5s in chemistry, natural history, and German language and literature. His lowest grades were in drawing and geography, 4s, and the only 3 he ever got was in French. That's still not bad at all. And it wasn't just high school. His mother, Pauline, once wrote in a letter to Einstein's aunt, "Albert got his report card yesterday. Once again, he's top of the class, and his grades are excellent." So no, Einstein wasn't a bad student. Of course, like any kid, he clashed with a few teachers. One middle school teacher at the Luitpold Gymnasium once said, "I wish Einstein wasn't my student." But it wasn't because he was lazy, it was because he sat in the back and smirked during lectures. The teacher felt disrespected and once even told him, "You'll never amount to anything." But these are just anecdotes. You can't judge a student's whole academic life on a few bad interactions. And when we look at the full picture, the records show that Einstein was, in fact, a very successful student. So again, why does this myth keep spreading? Well, it's kind of comforting. It's easier to believe that even someone like Einstein was misunderstood or underestimated, because that means maybe the system is wrong, not us. And it's true, Einstein hated the rigid, militaristic education systems of his time. He wrote about it often in letters. But that's not the same thing as being a bad student. There's another reason for the confusion, too. Grading systems. Einstein was born in 1879 in the German Empire and went to school there initially. In Germany, grades worked the opposite way. 1 was the best, and 6 was the worst. So early in his schooling, his report cards were full of 1s, which was actually excellent. But when he moved to Switzerland, many people misinterpreted those same numbers under the Swiss system, thinking he had failed everything. And just to complicate things further, his Swiss high school used the German system until 1896, Einstein's final year, when they flipped it to the Swiss style. That's the same year as the report card we just looked at. So yeah, confusion everywhere. But if we go by the family letters and academic records that still exist, the truth is clear. Einstein's grades were consistently good, sometimes even outstanding. After Einstein's death, Dr. Thomas Harvey placed his brain into 2 large jars and left New Jersey. He moved to the Midwest and began working as a general practitioner, completely cutting ties with academia. For 30 years, he was unable to get anyone to seriously study the brain. Neither universities nor scientists took him seriously. Eventually, Harvey tried to return the brain to Einstein's grandson, but he refused. The brain had become a sort of cursed legacy. After 40 years, Harvey returned to Princeton and handed the jars over to the new pathologist who had taken his place. And so, the 4-decade journey of a stolen brain finally came to an end. The first scientific study of Einstein's brain wasn't conducted until 1999. After that, a few more analyses followed. But what did they actually find? To start with a surprising fact, Einstein's brain was smaller than the average adult male brain. At the time of his death, it weighed 1,230 grams, while an average male brain weighs around 1,400 grams. So brain size doesn't necessarily equal genius, but its shape and structure showed some notable differences. Looking at the front of his brain, Einstein had 4 gyri folds instead of the usual 3. This area is linked to visual spatial reasoning and nonverbal math skills. Not so surprising for someone like him, right? Einstein had a large omega-shaped fold in his motor cortex that's usually only found in people who learn fine motor skills early in life, like playing an instrument. Einstein, in fact, began playing the violin at the age of 6. The shape of the motor cortex in the left hemisphere of his brain was highly irregular. This area controls hand movement. In Einstein's mind, music, motion, and thought were deeply intertwined. Microscopic analysis showed that Brodmann Area 39, responsible for language processing, had fewer neurons than average. This might explain why Einstein didn't speak fluently until he was 6 and struggled with writing. Some even believe he had dyslexia-like symptoms. Could it be that Einstein was born with an ordinary brain? The most distinct differences were found in the motor and sensory regions of his brain. Unlike most people, Einstein didn't think in words. He thought in images and music. His ideas often appeared in his mind as colorful shapes first, which he would then translate into mathematics. For instance, when stuck on a physics problem, he'd often play violin for hours and suddenly leap up and say, "I've got it." This suggests he might have been a synesthete, someone whose senses are cross-wired in unique ways. Einstein's approach to science was also different. While other scientists leaned on data and experiments, Einstein relied on beauty and elegance. He would ask, "If I were God, would I have created the universe this way?" This aesthetic mindset helped him develop the special theory of relativity. But it also delayed his progress on general relativity by 2 years because he kept choosing the prettier mathematical paths that ended up being wrong. Eventually, he gave up elegance for accuracy and finally succeeded. So were these brain differences there from birth, or did they develop over time? The brain is like warm plastic. It can reshape itself. This is called neuroplasticity. The more you practice something, the more connections your brain forms. But most of these changes are microscopic. The large-scale changes in Einstein's brain likely happened before the age of 6, as that's when the brain reaches 90% of its adult size. His serious interest in physics didn't begin until around age 10. In conclusion, yes, Einstein's brain was visibly different, but those differences alone don't explain his genius. To be someone like Einstein, you need more than just a special brain. You need curiosity, discipline, obsessive focus, and the right environment. Maybe you weren't born with a brain like Einstein's. Maybe your grades weren't like his either. But there are still things you do have: neuroplasticity, curiosity, and determination. And the truth is, most people never fully use them. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more. See you in the next one. Take care.